Title: Who is the most overrated figure in history? Comment by RDG Lee. I feel like Columbus is too easy of an answer for how many people nowadays don't like him, and deservedly so I'll go with probably a less popular answer: Sigmund Freud. His impact on psychology is largely overstated, and most, if not all, of his research and claims are not recognized by modern psychology. A good equivalent would be comparing him to astrology. Fun to read and think about, but don't take it too seriously. Reply by Brajor, psych grad here, chiming in and expanding what Op said. Freud is definitely famous, especially for those who aren't in the field. But, once you get to actually studying him, he's really only a small speck in psychology history, albeit one who managed to stir the psychological community. While we do consider him as the father of psychoanalysis, we are also aware of how overly sexual and sexist his theories really were. Most of the psychoanalysts who came after him were trying to debunk him because of it. Basically, what Freud did was to stir a very controversial topic, which ended up provoking other psychologists and helped develop what psychoanalysis is today. Also, psychoanalysis is really just one part of modern psychology. We also have biological, including psychiatry, behavioral, cognitive, humanistic, and a bunch of other branches of psychology, none of which Freud was a part of. Comment by Jack Frial. Thomas Edison, that guy was the absolute biggest douche. A good portion of his patents were stolen from his apprentices and students, and he tried to destroy perhaps the greatest inventor ever, Nikola Tesla. Comment by Zoaxa, Mother Teresa. Reply by Wander with Propose. Yes, this bitch right here. Sadistic old bat that deserves none of the praise she receives. Edited for all you lazy mofos. Copying this message from you be my plaything. What evil? This evil. She ran hospitals. If an institution with a 40% mortality rate is actually classifiable as a hospital, like prisons, particularly cruel and unhygienic prisons at that. Children in her care were tied to their beds to prevent them misbehaving. She let the terminally ill, and even those with illnesses that would have been curable if her hospitals were run better, die without pain relief because suffering brought them closer to Jesus. Most of the money donated to her causes was filtered back into the already exceedingly rich Catholic Church, or used to expand her charities to new regions, rather than actually helping those in her care, many of whom were starving and lacking basic medical care. Basically, she didn't love the poor and hungry, she loved poverty and hunger, she saw suffering as a grace, and despite being lauded as a humanitarian given the fame and donations she had at her disposal, did relatively little practical good. She befriended and defended a genocidal dictator, Jean-Claude Baby Doc Duvalier, and accepted donations from him of money extorted from the very poor she was supposedly helping, as well as drug dealing and body part trafficking. She accepted and refused to return profits of criminal activity, including $1.25 million in cash and use of a private jet from convicted racketeer and fraudster Charles Keating, who stole over $3 billion from U.S. taxpayers in the 80s and 90s. Upon his conviction, not only did Mother Teresa and the Catholic Church refuse to return the money they had received from him, Mother Teresa actually tried to use her influence to have him let off or at least sentenced leniently. She publicly defended known pedophiles from within the clergy, including trying to use her influence to have leniency shown in sentencing of convicted child rapist Donald McGuire, and campaigning to have him reinstated to the priesthood and allowing him to continue his work, even though this work would inevitably bring him into regular contact with children. Because so much of the money she raised went to the church, not the poor, she hated waste in her hospitals, insisting staff reused needles until they were too blunt to continue using, even in known HIV high-risk areas. She directed a mere 7% of the money her charities raised directly those she was supposedly helping, with much of the rest ending up in secret bank accounts and is yet still unaccounted for. She routinely baptized those dying under her care regardless of their own wishes or religious beliefs. She opposed both abortion and contraception, even in cases of incest, abuse and rape. She praised and supported Ireland's anti-divorce laws, even in cases where spousal abuse was apparent, forcing countless women to live out lives of slavery and torture. Basically, pretty much everything about her was evil, but the church's PR machine didn't have a hard job spinning. A kindly-looking old woman stood amongst some of the poorest people in the world to look like a saint, and once that side of the story was cemented in the press, it became all most people saw of her. Possible sources. External link. Les CTSTN Brood Am Re Teresa. External link. Christopher Hitchens Mother Teresa,